Hi. Well, welcome to BAASS Connect Virtual 2021. We're going to be covering the Operations Suite today. This session is for the inventory control item maintenance, which is basically part one of the inventory sessions. And my name is Heather Williamson. I'm a senior business consultant here with BAASS Business Solutions. I'm out in the Western region. So welcome. Our topics today include the setup of your items in inventory, the item vendor numbers, vendor number items, vendor item numbers, location details, and price lists. And under each of those topics, we have a couple of highlights that we want to hit. So the view that you see now is the visual process flow with for the item maintenance. And these visual process flows, as I've mentioned in previous sessions, are available with the system, and they just have to be assigned to the users. So if you don't have this access to this, then do ask your administrator. The thing I like about these is that it allows us to click on the dots or follow the bouncing ball, as they used to say, and takes us through each of the steps relating to the setup of an item and how it affects the different aspects of how you use inventory control. I'm just going to kill my camera and going to move over to the software. Okay. So hopefully you can see this okay. So see, yeah. All right. So I'm in the inventory control. As you can see, there are quite a few areas within inventory control. There's, items, there's transactions, inquiries, physical inventory, items and price lists, the setup area, stock control reports, and so on. Now, obviously, we're not going to have time in 25 minutes to cover all of this. So we're going to just start here with these items. You can see there's quite a few things here that can link to the items. And what we can do is we can utilize the items wizard to help us go through a quick add of the items. Okay. So when you want to add a new item, you can construct the item number using the structure. And so all you have to do is click on this little zoom button over here, select your structure, and there's a number of structures listed here. So we're going to just use the sample one. And we can have these segments can be used for reporting, for helping you to select and search, and also to help you create your own item numbers. So the first thing is we set up our categories as segments, which also helps us when we're sorting and printing. And then we can put in our own style or the item number, if you wish. And then we can also have a specific model. Now this can also be validated with different values so that you can have, colors or size or any number of other things. I'm just going to stick an eye in there just because. And then we can work through the description and the settings for the items. Now, I'm just going to go to an item that's already there, as opposed to having to type all this in here, and for you to try and watch me typing would be interesting. There we go. So I'm going to just start with our fluorescent desk lamp. So each of the items has a category and an account set associated with it, one and one. Your category is where we set up all the account numbers that these different categories can go to on the GL. So your sales, your cost of goods, and your cost variance, as well as a couple of other fields, and whether or not they're commissionable. The account set defines not only the costing method, but it also attaches to the general ledger control accounts. See here we've got different kind of costing methods, and we're just using the average costing. It's the most straightforward and the simplest, and your consultant will help you determine which is the best costing method for you. The picking sequence can be set here as a default, but can also be set on the individual locations. So when you have a warehouse and you've labeled your aisles and your bins and your shelves and so on, you can put that coding in here. Now, most of your items will be stock items, but it is possible to set up non-stock items as well. We would indicate whether this is a sellable item or whether we just want it to be a component item that we use internally. It can be also defined as a serialized product or lotted product. And we'll come back to that in a minute. If you're using a web integration, you can indicate whether you want this to be assigned to the web store. And then last, there's an option to make it either a master item, where we set up kind of a recipe that we build the item from components, or it can be set up as a kitting item. And that's where the system has one item, but it takes multiple items out at the same time. Hopefully we can come back to that. So your item numbers can be assigned with weights, different units of measure for weights, as well as a detailed transaction or a detailed listing of what you might need to know about that item in case you have somebody new and they don't know the stock very well. And then we set up our units of measure. Now, the stocking unit is usually the lowest quantity available, and then all the other units of measure are multiples of that. So that's what the conversion factor indicates. So if you are purchasing possibly in cases or crates and you're selling in eaches, then you want to be able to define all of those. The tax authorities can be assigned to the item. If you don't assign them, then they would automatically be taxable for everything. There are times, though, when certain items might not be taxable at certain jurisdictions, and you can indicate that in your tax class. And then we have optional fields for all those extra fields that don't come with the system automatically. Now, when it comes to the location details, and let's just see if we can make this a little bigger. So there we go. So the location details, we are able to assign items to specific locations and whether they're allowed or not allowed. So I haven't seen very many people use this feature, but there are times when perhaps a certain type of product is not sold in one of the specific offices or warehouses. And so therefore you could say, no, this one's not allowed. And then they won't be able to buy or receive it into that location or sell it. On this one, we can set 4 different costing methods. So the first one is standard cost. Usually standard cost is done when you're using a component item or an item that is going to be assembled in your manufacturing. You want to be able to predict what the cost is going to be. And then when standard cost is processed, there's a variance that will be calculated as well. Most recent cost is updated automatically when you receive the goods, and this is in your functional currency. If you're using negative inventory, allowing negative inventory, then you must make sure you have something in most recent cost, because if you don't have any in stock at the time, it will go into the costs at 0. So when you ship it and order entry grabs the cost for the item, it's going to go through as a 0 cost. So it kind of throws your margins out. Last unit cost is what we last ordered it at. And then landed is a user-defined cost. So you could put in what it would be if you added all the exchange and you added duty and you add a bunch of other things to it. You can create a landed cost to help you with your pricing. And you can see here that these items are already in stock, and we've not assigned any standard costs, but we do have most recent, and we can certainly add a landed cost here. We can also assign lead time and any minimum inventory that's required. And these are for the Sage Inventory Advisor module, which is a cloud application that helps you analyze your inventory and your turnover and so on. And we also have a menu here called vendor details. And if we were doing this manually, you'll see that it goes right from items to vendor details. And this one's important in terms of being able to create purchase orders automatically from the purchase order module. There's several ways of doing that, and it always wants to know what your vendors are. Now you can have a preferred vendor, which is usually vendor number 1, and this would be the one that you would most often order from if you can. You can have secondary vendors all the way up to vendor number 9. And these are set up with not only the vendor name and your contact, but you can also put the vendor's item number in here. So when you're ordering the purchase order, you can choose to have the vendor's number show on the purchase order instead of our number. And that suffices. In a lot of cases, I've noticed a lot of our clients use the vendor's numbers. And unfortunately, what will happen is if the vendors have different numbers, then you're stuck. You've got to have more than one item set up. So this way, you just have one item and you can use your own numbering and then just accommodate the vendors this way. You can order in different units of measure, of course, as long as they're attached to the item. And your vendor's cost and currency. Now, I should let you know that when we receive goods through purchase orders, this vendor cost is updated from the receiving, or the invoicing, whichever you choose. And depending, of course, on their currency, it will update. So we'll come back to that and talk about that some more in the tips and tricks section. Then we have the pricing. So the price lists on these items can be in multiple currencies, multiple languages. And in fact, if you have the language overlays installed for your own employees, then they can see it in their own language as well. We're just going to focus here on the Canadian price list. And you can see here that we have a base price. And if we just drill down to this, we'll be able to see that we have, ways to calculate these base prices. We can either have one that we enter, or it can be a cost plus percentage or cost plus an amount. We have the ability to set prices for one unit of measure or multiple units of measure. And of course, the calculation from cost. And we can also set a sale price. Now with the sale price usually comes a date, a start and end date for the sale. And so this way, if say it's just 1 week that you're going to do a sale for, then the system will check if it's got, what the normal price is, and then it'll check the sale price. If it's within the dated period, it will give the customer the sale price. You can have a margin cost for markup, so that if you want to calculate from this cost, you can do that. And we also have discounts for 2 different options. There's one by customer type. So in the accounts receivable, each customer is assigned either base or A to E levels, and then you can assign discounts accordingly. Now this is discount from base, right? And you can round up or round down, as well as you can do a discount based on the markup or amount. Okay. But you can also do volume discounts. Now, unfortunately, you can't do them both at the same time. It's a one or the other kind of deal. And you can set your levels here on the right up to 5 levels, and the percentage or amount accordingly. So this calculates automatically when the criteria is met on the order, in order entry. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Now this shows as the net price. It does not show as a discount amount on the order. So that's a separate thing. And then one of the really cool things is that if we're concerned about people overriding these prices manually or your staff, we can have a price check option. So we can have it so that it warns you if this a particular user puts a margin outside a certain percentage. We can have it create an error, which means a warning is just a, oh, warning, warning, and then you hit OK. Whereas error, you have to go back and correct the error before you can go on. So if they've put in an incorrect price, they have to fix it. They can't just save it and go on like they can with a warning. And then approval means that we can actually set up user IDs in the system that have the rights to approve price overrides. And they have to come in and sign in with their user ID and password. Okay. There are some customer related pricing. This would be what we call contract pricing. And so contract pricing is in such a way that there might be an exception to the normal price list. So whatever the normal price list is for him or her, then they can also use an override. So let's say with this particular item, let's see if I can get in here. Yeah, so here's a calculated price for a particular item or category. And for that, we're going to do an override to make them a customer A, as opposed to whatever customer level they are. And then we also have the same thing by item number. It's hard to see this. I can't seem to drill down into it. We have manufacturer's item numbers, which is basically the barcodes. But if you type this number in, whatever it is, you can type it in, it'll automatically translate it to whatever this information is. The customer numbers can be also set up. So if you want that to show on their order confirmation or their invoice, then we can have their item number, their comments, their instructions, and their default unit of measure. The descriptions in that require some customization of the forms. So it's not something that comes out of the box. And then last but not least is the item's reorder information. Now this is pretty cool because you can set this up for a particular location or all locations. And you can have it so that you've set your minimum quantities, your maximum, how many you have to order at a time, and your projected sales quantity for that period. So in this case, we've got 2 periods identified here, which basically means that the May one is peak month where they're expecting more, so they want to stock up more for the next month. And then once we get back down to June again, then they'll drop down to the regular quantities for the rest of the year. So this is for when you're generating purchase orders, you can purchase up to the maximum or above the minimum. Okay, so that's our item wizard. It shows what items we're going to modify here. And I can carry on and do another item, or I can just finish. Okay, so that represents all the same objects that we have here. The serial numbers and lot numbers are going to be covered in the next class. Now, the other thing that we can do here too with our pricing is we can copy the pricing from one price list to another or to a new one, or we can also do price updates. So we don't have to simply go in here manually and change the price for everything. We can change them based on which price list it is that we want to do, and from and to. So this, as I said, always means and. We can select them by item number, by category, segment, various different options. So I'm just going to say category, and I'm going to select my category for accessories. And then we can increase the base price or the sale price or the dates and so on, or decrease. And we can do this by either percentage or amount. So if I'm going to raise my prices by, say, 2% in this category, I just click on Update. It goes through, does the update for me. There was 2 that were not updated, and I'd have to go check and see why that is. But there's 32 that were updated. Okay. Okay, so that pretty much covers the inventory setup. So I'm just going to go back here to my screen share. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box. If you don't make it in this session, we still have another couple of sessions to go here this afternoon. So feel free to put them in on any of these sessions, and we will address them in the last session at 3:20 this afternoon. Again, thanks for attending, and I'll see you at part 2 of the inventory.